Hello, this is Janet from janetsandberg.com, and you're listening to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast, the weekly show that talks to peers and professionals who open up about their darkest moments when they felt like ending it all, why they didn't, and how they transformed their lives in order to triumph over the darkness and despair. Please remember to subscribe if you'd like to hear more inspiring stories. Hello and welcome to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. I am your host, Janet Sandberg, and today we are joined by Becky Ogden. Becky, welcome and thank you for being here. Can you just start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure.
Tell us who you are.
Absolutely. Who I am. So yeah, I'm Becky. Let's see here. In order of a significance that pops out to me, I am recently divorced from a man I have loved all of my adult life. So that's 30
That's
years.
big.
And he unfortunately descended into the bottle and a pit of depression that was hostile and angry a lot, and it just wasn't a good situation, and I couldn't love him out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So our emotional ties were severed earlier this summer. So nobody else would know this, but just prior to you pressing the record button on this, I was telling you that I'm eyeballs deep in this again, and I wasn't kidding when I said that. I've been through suicidal ideation before, and I'm kind of there again, but not as intense because I've been through it before. But that's why. So we have 3 kids together. Our oldest is almost 25. He's enlisted in the Coast Guard, active duty, and engaged to a delightful young woman. Our second child is almost 22. She's married, and she works at a chiropractor's office. And her husband is absolutely wonderful as well. My kids so far, knock on wood, very blessed with their significant others. And then our youngest is almost 15. I have always homeschooled our kids. So I started homeschooling back when it was still weird.
Right.
And we were in the days of Yahoo groups and stuff. I just recently started a Facebook group for other divorced women who are also building or scaling businesses because I wanted connection with other people. Most of my friends are happily married, and good. I'm glad. I don't want anybody to deal with this stuff. And it's better for society when more people are happily married. But that's not my story anymore, and I need connection with other people that kind of get it. And so I started that.
Beautiful.
And yeah, I mean, that's where I am.
All right. It's a lot. It's a lot to be going through.
Yeah.
There's like some great highs and some low lows, and I feel like that's kind of just life.
Yeah.
A lot of the times. And unfortunately, sometimes our brains only like to focus on the low lows.
Mm.
And we kind of get stuck there. Can you tell us about the first time that happened?
Yes. Okay. So the first time that I actually knew what was happening was in 2007. I had something that's called a complete molar pregnancy. If you are not familiar with that, it is conception occurs, but no baby forms. In your placenta goes crazy, pumps out horrendously high levels of HCG in your system, makes you really sick, makes you get big really fast, and it's not a good thing.
Right.
You have to have a D&C, and then you have follow-up care that involves X-rays to make sure that it hasn't turned cancerous, and weekly blood draws until your levels of HCG go down to 0. If they don't, you end up having to have chemotherapy to get them down to 0. It's a horrendous thing. You can't heal because the Band-Aid is being ripped off constantly.
Right.
And at the time, so this was after my second child, but before my third living child. At the time, I had 5 pregnant friends
Oh my gosh.
And it was horrible. We'd moved, and so we were in an area where I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have any family. I had two small children. It was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. I was plagued by horrible, horrible nightmares. I was afraid to go to sleep. I went cold turkey off of the painkillers and the muscle relaxers after I found myself wondering how I might be able to get more if my doctor wouldn't prescribe them to me. And I kind of dove down that rabbit hole and figured out that people like that end up hooked on heroin. And I was like, maybe.
Maybe not. Maybe let's not do that.
Yeah, I went cold turkey on that, and that made things much worse in the short run. Yeah, it was dreadful.
Yeah. Especially the not being able to sleep, like not only
Mm-hmm.
for our physical and mental health, sleep is really important. That's when our bodies do all of their healing.
Mm-hmm.
So to be plagued by nightmares and night terrors when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to heal is very counterproductive.
Yes.
And also, like for me, from when my depression gets really bad, that's all I want to do is sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I hide out.
Mm-hmm.
So not being able to sleep while, you know, there's nowhere to hide.
It was, yeah, it was dreadful. The nightmares I had were terrifying. Like literally, the worst one was a giant pulsing blob that just was like trying to consume me, and you could tell
Oh.
that it was like suffering and angry, and I mean the Freud would have had a heyday with something like that, right? But I was terrified to go to sleep because I knew that I was going to be plunged into those kind of, dreadful nightmares, and it took months before I stopped having nightmares.
Right. So you're not only trying to physically heal from the all of the stuff they're putting you through from
Yes.
the DNC, from all of the tests, from
Mm-hmm.
all of the everything, but also emotionally, like you thought you were pregnant and found
Mm-hmm.
out that it wasn't viable,
Mm-hmm.
and then having to go through all of that on top of it. Plus your hormones are
Oh yeah,
absolutely out of whack.
yeah, yeah.
Like God, no wonder. Like
Even more
it's
so.
just it's and when we're in these places and we're thinking like I just don't want to be here anymore, I don't want to deal with all of this, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and but we don't want to tell anybody, but really it is too much. Like nobody
Mm-hmm.
should be going through those things. And yeah, so I totally understand, but I also totally understand why, and I don't know why we have that part of our brain that says, oh, I should be able to get through this without a problem. Like you shouldn't. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is a lot to deal with. Plus you have two little kids at home already.
Yeah. Yep.
Like and
Now,
a husband,
thankfully,
like whatever.
thankfully, their dad was still healthy at that point.
Yeah.
And he was, at that point he was a wonderful, wonderful husband at that point in time. And he did everything. He took care of me. He went to work. He came home, make sure the kids were fed and put them to bed, and did the housework and all that stuff. So I was not without support.
Good.
But I was in a situation where I just didn't have it. I didn't have any close friends. I had acquaintances, and I had no family around other than him. And so that was really hard. But
Yeah. So
it's
what got you through that? What made you want to stay
um
and not take
well
all the pills
I
other than the heroin?
yeah, no, I mean it was not wanting to leave my kids without a mom, really. Otherwise, as I was driving home from the doctor's office, which was a dreadful experience as well, the day that I got the news. I'm like looking longingly at concrete walls and stuff as I'm driving home. Like, I could just go fast enough and it'd be over in a split second. But then, my bit of twisted irreverence inside me is like, yeah, but Becky, would it really be over, or would you really just screw yourself up completely, but not completely enough that you didn't know that you'd done it. So I'd be a twitching mess, but I'd still have the cognitive ability to know that I did this to myself, but nothing else. And so I'm like, yeah, maybe not. But really, it was my kids. I did not want to leave them without a mother, and that's still true. In my current circumstances, as I've watched this man that I have loved for 30 years just descend into an unrecognizable version of himself. It's a tragic waste. It's horrifying and horrible and stuff. But I still have a minor child that I have to raise. And then and my other two are grown, and so I'm like, they'll get over it. But they wouldn't. So
yeah,
it's
they still need you, even though
yeah,
they have significant others and are building their
right.
own lives. We all still need our moms for as long as possible.
Yeah. So yeah, it's my kids, and maybe a little bit of cowardice. Like I don't like pain. I don't know anybody that does, but I have a particularly low tolerance for pain. And so, I don't really want to inflict more pain on myself. I just want the stuff that I'm going through to stop.
Exactly.
You know.
And that's what we talk about over and over. And when everybody tells their stories, they're like, I don't necessarily want to die. I don't necessarily want to hurt myself. I just need whatever this is that's going on in my life to stop.
Yeah.
And the what seems like the easiest way to do that a lot of times is to just remove ourselves from the situation. That one action seems like it's a lot easier than changing all of the other stuff that's going on in our lives.
For sure.
But that is totally not true for anybody who's listening. It is totally not true. And sometimes all it takes is just one little change in the situation that will then snowball into other bigger changes.
Right.
So what did you do to help yourself heal and recover and get back to yourself?
So in 2007, when my Muller pregnancy happened, my older two kids were 5 and 8. And I had to go in for this D&C. Now, I had a D&C before, after my son was born, when I didn't deliver all of the placenta and started bleeding again heavily after his birth. That one I recovered from very quickly and easily. This one, I didn't want. I felt violated. I was just really angry and sad, and I didn't want to do it. I felt forced into doing it. And so as I was getting prepped for the surgery, I started picking at the IV line to give myself some physical pain to kind of numb out that emotional pain.
Okay.
And I just was fascinated with the way that the blood was kind of trickling down my arm. I mean, I was out of my mind. And my husband was horrified. He called over a nurse, and he's like, you need to knock her out or something, make her stop doing that. And they had asked for my consent to do a transfusion if I needed one. I was like, no. And he's like, yes. She's not in any shape, to do this.
To be making informed decisions about her own health.
And afterward, that D&C, it was weeks before I felt physically normal again. Never mind emotionally normal. It really gutted me. I think that I probably came close to needing a transfusion. I didn't need one, but I was like, holy crap, this is so much worse than the last time I'd gone through this. So physically, I was a wreck. Emotionally, I was a wreck. And I stayed there for a good long while. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to be sad. I wanted to be angry. But I realized that at some point, my husband's ability to be compassionate and understanding was going to wear out, because nobody can sustain that level of care and concern for somebody else when they aren't trying to get better. Right. Like if he's not seeing me try to get better, at some point he's going to have to put our kids' well-being above mine. and his own well-being above mine, in order to, take care of them, which is exactly what I had to do with him, all these years later when he was devolving. I was like, our kids have to come first.
Yeah.
So I saw that he wasn't going to be able to sustain that level of care and concern for me if I didn't start trying to get better. And I didn't want my family to fall apart. And so that's what kicked me into gear. And my strategy for doing that, I figured out very quickly that if I thought about the future at all, it sent me into a panic attack. And like my imagination was just laying all sorts of worst case scenarios that sounded perfectly plausible to me inside my head. You know exactly what I'm talking about, nodding your head. And it would just send me spiraling. And so I had to be very diligent about my self-talk, and sometimes initially out loud. Okay, let's not go there. What do we need to do in the next 30 seconds to make it through the next 30 seconds? Okay, do that. And sometimes it was just breathe in, breathe out, that was it. Or sometimes it was, oh, I need to go make my kids a sandwich. Okay, go make the kids a sandwich. Focus on, spreading the peanut butter and slapping the bread together. And eventually it turned into, what do I need to do in the next half hour? What do I need to do in the next day? What do I need to do in the next week? And gradually, with a lot of discipline, and keeping my thoughts focused on the here and now, because the here and now isn't as bad as you think it is.
You're perfectly fine right now.
Perfectly fine right now. Your own brain and your own thoughts are what's causing your, most of your suffering. As long as I did that, I was okay. And I gradually got better and better and better. And I had more and more and more better days. It's the hardest work I've ever done in my life, though, to heal when all I wanted to do was be angry and sad. And I'm right back there again. I'm right back to having to control my thoughts and be very diligent about where I allow them to go. And it's not easy. It's really
exhausting.
It's exhausting. But what do I want my kids to see? Do I want my kids to see this is how you do it, or do I want them to go, ooh, mom's not doing so hot. This is not how you want to handle these things. And so that's what I've chosen to do, and why I've chosen to do it, and how I've chosen to do it. It takes a certain level of awareness, of self-awareness and reflection. It takes a lot of discipline, and it takes the willingness to accept that you are causing a lot of your own suffering. And people who want to stay mired in victim mode don't want to acknowledge that.
Yes, that is huge. That is huge. And I'm sure we all know people like that who love to bitch and complain about everyone and everything and how terrible their life is, but they don't do anything to make it better. And and so that takes a huge amount of insight to be, yes, a lot of times we're in terrible circumstances, but also how much of that are we blaming on external circumstances, and how much of it is our responsibility. And sometimes it's a very small percent. Sometimes, we really are the victim of the situation, but we can still choose to do something about that. And we can choose how we react to things.
And the stories that we tell ourselves about it, in my current situation, I can't do anything about this. I don't have any control over my ex-husband doing, what he's done, no matter how much it breaks my heart. Because it does, he was a good man, and we had 23 really good years together. And I can't control it. I can't change it. I can't even influence it at all. I can only make the decision to save myself and our kid. But in where it becomes my responsibility, when I want to be angry and I want to be sad and I want to feel sorry for myself, then I go to, I've got some go-to thoughts. It's like, I'm going to be alone forever. No one's ever going to love me ever again. I'm never going to be able to trust anybody ever again. All that stuff. And that causes me suffering. Right. And so, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know where to go if I want to punish myself. But that's my fault. Those are the things that I'm choosing to tell myself, and they haven't even happened yet. I mean, I'm not even the slightest bit interested in another relationship right now.
Right.
I need to heal from this one, and I need to focus on our youngest daughter.
Yeah.
Those are my priorities. So I don't even know why my brain wants to go, oh, you're going to be alone forever. Nobody's going to love you, Becky, because it's not even a thing right now. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody the other day. I can't remember what the conversation was, but it was about, oh, yeah, now I remember. It was yesterday when I was getting my hair done. I was talking to my hairstylist and about, people who choose to be victims, and like it takes a lot to, yes, healing is hard work and it's exhausting, but it also is hard work to stay miserable all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we are entitled to feel angry and to feel sad, but we don't want to get stuck there. And
Right.
we don't want those to be the only emotions that we feel.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, it's good to say, this is enough. I want better
Mm-hmm.
for myself. And I
Absolutely.
want better for my kids if you have kids, or,
Yep.
whoever you are sharing your life with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I have a strategy for that too. That one that I had started employing with my daughter, with my youngest daughter, and I call it the pity party. And the pity party is great because the things that you tell yourself inside your head, like I'm going to be alone forever, nobody's ever going to love me anymore, or in my daughter's case, she needs to make some changes to her diet.
Mm-hmm.
Because her current diet is causing her some distress. And she doesn't want to. She really doesn't want to. And so I'm like, okay, play this out with me, Jillian. Let's just make this a pity party. Like, it's the worst thing ever. Okay, so you have to change your diet. What's going to happen? Oh, I'm never going to want to eat anything again. Okay, all right. So yeah, you're never going to want to eat anything. What else? Lay it on. Come on, let's get it all out. Okay, well, everything that I can eat with this new diet is going to be terrible. It's not going to taste good at all. And okay, keep going. And it's going to take forever to cook. And so I don't want to cook at all. Okay, keep going. Just take it out. And by
Yeah.
the end, by the time I had drawn all of the worst case scenarios out of her, it was so ridiculous and so absurd that she was laughing. And all of the power of that was
I love that.
and I use that with myself all the time. And actually, I have contemplated offering pity parties. Come in here, and I'm not going to fix you. I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. I'm not going to tell you just pray or be grateful or God won't give you more than you can handle or any of those other awful, horrible cliches that aren't helpful at all. No, I'm gonna help you make it as bad as it can possibly be, so you can see that it's not actually that bad.
Yes. Yes. There's a woman, author, healer, thought leader, or I don't know what to classify her as. Her name is Byron Katie.
Yep.
And she
I'm
has something
familiar.
called The Work. That's just what
Yep.
it's called.
I'm
And it's
familiar
very
with it.
similar to that, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like you write out all these things and you're like, but is it true? And then
Yeah.
like this bad statement, is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and if it is, like, and you just keep working through it, but in a
Right.
very similar manner where
Yep.
you just like, okay, but is it actually true? And the
Right.
same is when you just say, instead of keeping all of these
Mm-hmm.
negative thoughts and ideas inside, once we put them out and show them the light of day, they tend not to be quite so powerful anymore.
Right. That's exactly it. I'm not gonna. I wouldn't. When I do my own pity party, or when I'm doing this with my daughter, it's not about whether it's true. Like I don't care whether it's true or not. I
Mm-hmm.
just care to get it out, and make
Yeah.
it, embellish it, make it terrible. It's in the line of, I don't know if you've heard of existential kink, the book Existential Kink. It's
No.
cool. Okay, yeah, for anybody with a slightly sick, twisted sense of humor, little bit cynical, maybe. Existential kink is fabulous. It's the idea that we get off on our own misery,
Oh.
um, and it resonates really powerfully with me. And so it's put on your best Disney villainous voice and tell yourself all of the worst things that you can possibly tell yourself about this situation and how you feel, and get it out, because it's controlling you while it's not out. Don't examine it too much. Just get it out.
Exactly.
Elaborate, embellish, take glee and delight in it, and then it's done.
Yeah.
You're bored with it, because then it's like, okay.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Thank you. This was a great conversation. I got so many little nuggets out of it, and I hope our listeners do too. Is there any last words of wisdom you would like to share?
Oh gosh. Any last minute words of wisdom? I don't know. Be too stubborn to be a victim.
Ooh, I like that.
That's me. I mean, I can enjoy feeling like a victim and feeling sorry for myself in a pity party for a little while, but ultimately I'm too stubborn to let someone or something get the best of me. It's not going to happen.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and your courage to share your story and the wisdom that you've shared with our listeners today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.